Hello everyone, Dr. T here. Today I'll make an introduction to marketing. For us to understand what something is, it helps to discuss what something is not. And you might be hearing these type of statements in the public discourse, that marketing is inherently unethical and harmful to society. We don't really, just by existing, it hurts society and we don't really need marketing. You might hear people say that marketers create artificial needs. Remember all those weight loss ads. Oh, you're gonna lose 30 pounds in a month. Or you might see people talk about whether marketers promise miracles. Um, or some people will say just marketing and advertising not really necessary. And the main argument behind that is they say um, when companies spend money on marketing or advertising, they're going to have to that's an expense for them, and they're going to have to increase prices, which is essentially not good for society. And so that's the main argument. If you remember in 2009 when Toyota had that uh, you know PR crisis, when they had the brake pedal issue, uh, they spent in the first quarter of 2009, they spent about $1 billion on marketing and advertising to kind of fix their image. Now, the argument is when the company spends a lot of money on marketing and advertising, they're going to have to increase prices. And and if you are wondering if this is a straw man argument, I can show you a couple of examples where people, harshly criticize marketing and marketers. You can stop my video and go to the two YouTube clips that I'm showing here. In the first one, Bill Hicks talks about what he thinks of marketers, and you probably can go about 40 seconds before hearing a barrage of F words. But then, he jokingly says that, oh, we gotta kill all marketers and advertisers, and that they are the source of all evil. Or you can go to George Carlin's video in which he talks about how advertisers lull you to sleep and it's a lullaby and things like that. So, there is, these are comedians, but at the same time, there is an underlying sentiment that marketing is not really that good for us. And it's there to trick us. And if you're wondering whether only comedians talk about this, not really. You can find people from the marketing academia. Here's a college, Naomi Klein, who's an author, also teaching for Rutgers University. One of her books is called No Logo. So a basic argument in the book is we don't really need any logos, which is a huge part of branding, obviously, because it is, not good for the society. So if you are wondering whether how the business or trade would function without any marketing or business, you should ask yourself. When I ask this question to my students, most of them, the initial reaction is, without marketing, how do we know about the product? So it's a huge source of information, so that's an essential benefit to society. But is it just that? Are there other things that you can think of that would impact the society? Now, you don't really have to think too far, because in history, there's an example of a society where marketing was banned. Soviet Russia, they had this rule that you couldn't have your logo on the products that you manufacture. What do you think happened next? This is a good question, because you have to have that kind of mental gymnastics. What would happen if we didn't have any kind of marketing or branding in a society? Here's what happened in Soviet Russia. Shoddy products started to appear in the market, and they didn't know who made them. They didn't know who made them, because there was no logo, no brand, no nothing on the products. So they said, okay, changing the rules. We are going to implement a production mark, which is essentially a brand, on the products. You cannot have you cannot manufacture your products if you don't have a production mark on them. That's Russian for production mark. I don't know how to pronounce it. But this is a very natural human tendency. When you have your name on your product, obviously you care more. Here's a uh, mental exercise for you. So let's say you're taking my class and I'm going to give you a test. But in that test, I ask you not to write your name on the test. How would that affect your performance? You are not going to do as well. Obviously, you are not going to perform as well as you would if you had your name on the test. Another thought exercise. If let's assume I gave you the first test, you did fantastic. You got 100% from the first test. You feel good. You are one of the top students in the class. How would that performance affect your performance in the second test? Right? You would have a natural tendency to do well in the second test, obviously, and this is again a very natural human tendency. You would naturally be motivated to do well in the second test. Branding works the same way. When you have your name on a product, you should have that's basically a way to maintain quality because you are going to be motivated to do well in your product or service. So the next time someone asks you if marketing is at all needed for the society, you just tell them marketing and branding is not just beneficial for the society, which it is beneficial, but it's also necessary for the society. For trade to function, you need to have a well-functioning marketing um, system. It's a source of information for customers. It's an incentive for firms to maintain quality, just like how you would want to do well in the second test if you did really well in the first test. And it's a means to hold manufacturers accountable if needed. So again, it's not just beneficial for the society, it's necessary, it's essential for trade to function, for businesses to function. Now let's think about the history of this a little bit, because if you only focus on the academic literature, marketing doesn't go that far back. It's relatively a young academic discipline. You know, the first academic journal in marketing is called Journal of Retailing, which was founded in 1911. So in terms of the accumulation of knowledge, it's really not that old. I mean, if you think about economics, around 300 years. Some other disciplines, philosophy, psychology, goes thousands of years in terms of the knowledge accumulation. So marketing is new in that sense. But how about for practical purposes? In practice, did we really have marketing, years ago? Here's an image that you can see on the screen. It's a graffiti from the city of Pompeii. They are advertising gladiator games. Even then, you would have marketing communication, promotional material. Basically, branding, you would probably look at the gladiators, they would have different names, different fighting styles, and things like that that will help them connect with the audience, you know. So you go back thousands of years, you still find marketing practices. It's a, it's obviously, you know, important part of any kind of exchange relationship, even then. Now, in terms of practice, marketing existed. How about in terms of the skill set? In terms of skill set, you'll find people who are naturally good at marketing. And this will tell you that, you can obviously you take a college class, a college degree, and you can get better at marketing. But for some people, it's a natural thing, and some people naturally good at marketing, right? It's an innate skill, and again, it's something that you can improve, but it's something that also you can be naturally good at. My favorite example about this is Muhammad Ali. Like he was naturally good at. He didn't have proper business education, but he really captured the imagination of crowds. So he was. Some of you may know his story, but it's very interesting because he was the youngest Olympic gold medalist in boxing, and then so he fought in the Olympics, and then came back and then turned pro. And after a couple of fights, he was scheduled to fight the belt holder of the time. I think the guy named Sonny Liston. So he's fighting this guy who's legitimately scary guy, and and he's saying like crazy things. One of the things that you may remember, he would say things like, "Oh, I'll float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Your hands can hit, your eyes can't see." So this is a boxer who's scheduled to fight one of the meanest, nastiest guys ever, and he's saying these type of rhyming statements that will kind of like people find interesting, funny, and humorous, but at the same time, um, well, exciting. So, so this was, I mean, the amount of buzz. I mean, obviously he had this controversy with the Vietnam War and everything, but he was really, truly an iconic figure. As an example, I can tell you this. So, so when he was fighting, my mom was a little kid. She was in Turkey, living in a mid Anatolian city in a remote village as a 5-year-old kid. Now, when Ali fought, now in their village, they didn't have, not a lot of people had TVs, right? So they had like one or two houses with TV sets. So the village would wake up in the middle of the night and then go to that one house, all of them, as a family. Think about a 5-year-old girl walking 4 a.m. in the morning to go to this with her family, go to this other house so you can watch this guy fight. I don't think modern day athletes reach that kind of impact, or not all of them does at least. So he created that kind of buzz, which was obviously like very impressive. Now my question to you is, do you think it's enough to be a good marketer? You create buzz, you create all this excitement, you create the awareness. Is that enough? Now, the answer to that question is obviously not. Like you cannot just be creating awareness or excitement or buzz and be done with it. Your performance, your delivery must be as good. Your delivery must match the promotion. So in this case, he fought the guy in the seventh round. He knocked him out. Very impressive victory, and he was able to deliver on his promise in the form of the promotion. This is a very important concept in marketing. We have this 4 Ps, which will come later in the lecture, but you have the product and the promotion piece. They gotta match. Whatever you offer to the market gotta match the promotion. Like for instance, you never see company like Walmart talking about their luxurious products because that's not their identity. What's their slogan? Their slogan is like always low prices or something like that, right? The point is, this is what they deliver and this is what they promote, which is a good match. Now it works. So it's important to have that kind of connection. Now, who would be the opposite example? So you might remember this from a few years back. There was a huge Bud Light saga. This lady, Alisa Heinerschild, she was the VP of marketing for Bud Light. And if you look at her resume, she has all the credentials. She had a undergrad degree from Harvard, graduate degree from Wharton. I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that. But she was lacking the essential skill to be a good marketer. Okay, she didn't know how to connect with her audience, and she was completely out of touch with her audience. And if you don't have that main essential skill, it doesn't matter. Your credentials doesn't matter. Who cares if you have a degree from Harvard or Wharton, right? But you don't know the very basics of marketing. You don't have the natural acumen to be good at marketing. So what she did was she hired a transgender influencer to promote Bud Light, which was not acceptable for her audience, her target market. And people rebelled against that idea. Their sales dropped 30%, and they basically they lost their 20-year running number one spot in in light beer sales because of this incident. It was a major blunder, and it was not because this person didn't have the credentials. She did, but she didn't have the skill set to be successful at marketing. My point is, it's important for you to understand that there's a natural ability to connect with people, and to strategically communicate with them, and apply marketing practices. And obviously you can learn these and you can improve your skills, but you have to understand the basics of marketing. Now let's try to go over how marketing is defined, because the definition will give us an idea about the marketing's interest area. What are things that we care about, and this is important because like this will help you create this mental boundaries around marketing. American Marketing Association formed a task force in 2007, and one of my professors in the doctoral program, late Professor Shelby Hunt, he was part of this task force as well. So this task force had a lot of marketing academics, a lot of marketing professionals. They ran surveys and created this definition that I think does a good job of describing what we care about in marketing. And the the definition starts as the activity, set of institutions, and the processes. This was new for this definition because marketing is a process, it's an activity, it's something dynamic. It changes over time. You cannot expect marketing to be like one size fits all. It's something that changes over time with the cultural changes, with the technological changes. It's also the set of institutions, because what they're trying to communicate here is that the marketing is not just the responsibility of the marketing department. It is it should be the set of institutions, which means any department in a company should bear some level of responsibility, because at the end of the day, this is how you connect with your audience target, and you gotta have some level of familiarity with your brand image. Like you gotta know what you are trying to communicate. So that's why they wanted to include or they wanted to have a more global perspective within the company. That's why they said it's an activity, set of institutions, and the processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings. Like this is how the definition continues. Now, these are four words that are really essential, because if some of you, if you took any kind of marketing education, you may know something called 4 P's of marketing. Okay. Here, what they are trying to use, they are referring to the 4 P's of marketing. 4 P's of marketing it's also called marketing mix. It is our interest area in marketing. What are some of the things that we care about in marketing? And it's creating, which is the product P. As marketers, we care about how you create a product, right? It's not just the engineers who develop the product, because the marketing people are your connection to your audience, and you need to have that input when you are creating a product. That's why creating a product, which is the product P, is important. Then communicating, which is the promotion P. We have to communicate what you offer to the market, and you have to deliver these offerings, and that the location of the delivery matters. And exchanging offerings, right? That's the price P. You expect something in return. I offer you to the product and I expect the price in return. That's the exchange relationship that is important here. Now we call offering, pay attention, not just product, because offering is what you offer to the market. It's a product, it's a service, it's an idea. It could be anything that you offer to the market and you expect something in return in the form of price, right? So these are the four P's here that's described in the definition. And then exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. The important point here is that whatever you offer to the market should have value for the market. You know, this is a lot of people fall into this trap. They feel like, okay, I created this brand, I know what works, I know what's good, and then they kind of lose sight of what people want. And at the end of the day, whatever you offer to the market should have value for them. If you're not going to add value to the other party, then what's the point? You cannot really sustain your business. So that's why this definition, really good definition, it's important. It's the activity, set of institutions, and a process for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, and partners and society at large. There's another very important concept that we need to talk about. That's the exchange concept in marketing. Now, remember I mentioned in the earlier slide, it's exchanging offerings, right? You offer something to market, you get something in return. Now, exchange is the subject matter of marketing. Every academic discipline has a subject matter. That's like whatever the concept at the core of this academic discipline. So if you think about psychology, you think about human psyche. You think about sociology, you think about the connection between society and person. You think about chemistry, you think about the matter. And, everything in the academic discipline connects back to that core concept. Marketing, this is the exchange relationships, right? If there's no exchange, there's no marketing. It has to be an exchange relationship in a competitive setting, though, okay? So there gotta be some level of competition. You have an exchange relationship with your mom, but there's no marketing there because there's no competition, okay? You only have one mom. So, or let's think about a dictatorial regime. Let's say you don't really have a lot of options. You're gonna buy this product and this product only. Then there's no need for marketing. But if there's a competitive setting, and the way we define exchange relationships is like having two or more parties that have the freedom and willingness to exchange their offerings that have value for the other party. Okay, so you offer something that has value for the other party. They are free and willing to make this exchange happen. That's what we mean by exchange relationships. Again, you can offer a product, a service, an idea, but at the end of the day, you want to have that exchange relationship at the core. This is like all these things that we talk about in marketing. At the end of the day, you want to make that exchange happen. All right, let's try to have a historical perspective about the marketing practices. Because obviously you will have certain small changes in marketing, but over time, if you have a long enough time horizon, you'll see major shifts in the practice of marketing. Okay, and this will tell you about maybe the main priorities of the time. Uh, you know, for instance, if you look at before 1920s, where manufacturing was the biggest difference maker for businesses, for companies, then the marketing and sales effort was much different. There is a famous saying of Henry Ford that goes like, "My customers can ask for any color car as long as it's black." Because you manufacture a black car, you buy a black car. Because that was the difference maker. Your alternative is, am I gonna go to work with a horse, or am I gonna get this nice car? So so that's a different dynamic. Now, after 1920s, as you know the 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 products in the market proliferate and increase in number. Now the focus shifted from manufacturing to sales. Then you would have these salespeople, which I feel like created this negative image about salespeople, or at least contributed to the creation of the current image of salespeople, which are a little pushy, a little bit like trying to, convince you to buy this car, figure out whatever, do whatever it takes to kind of make you buy the product. Because at the end of the day, a lot of products and the supply um, is more than the demand. So you are trying to, figure out a way to convince people to buy. They're not gonna be mesmerized by the fact that, oh, this guy is selling a car, and let me just go find them and then I'll just buy the car from them. No, you have to kind of convince them. And then as the time passed, you'll see that this strategy didn't work, because the competition increased, there are more options available, and people, they were able to choose. And then the strategy shifted from sales to customers. And in the 1960s, there was this new concept. Okay, we got to have what they called marketing concept, which is we got to have customers at the center of our strategy. This was, you may remember the saying that the customer is always right. That was emerged during that time, because you had to find a way to convince customers that, okay, your product will really help solve their problem. And this was a different strategy than just hire a salesperson and they'll figure out how to sell. No, now you have to have the customers at the core of your strategy. And what do they like? What color they like? What type of features they like? Obviously, the culture and technology um, kind of change hand in hand. At that time, the clients, they were mostly male, and that would impact the way you sell. Let's say in the auto sector, right? That would impact how you sell cars. And then, with 80s and onwards, then you'll have more international competition, a lot of options. The culture has changed. The customer base was different. So you saw uh, not just, okay, I have customer focus, not enough, but you start to get a lot of data as well. Like in late 90s, most companies, they were using the internet, right? So this was the time that companies had a lot of information, and they were trying to decide how they can create strategies based on that information. Rather than just thinking about that one customer, I can create larger segments, stronger decisions, more richer insights about customers because I have more data. And as time goes on, then that's why in 2010s and onwards, you'll see that data science is very important because, okay, we have all this data. What are we going to do with this data? And I would say from now and into the future, you'll see a lot more AI, and that's going to be another major shift in the way we market our products because you cannot help it. AI is of not will already is affecting everything, the way we do market, everything. How you create content, how you study customers, how you design your strategies. AI is a huge part of how you create products, right? AI is a huge part of everything. So you'll see another shift from maybe data, which is still important, towards this algorithmic insights, AI and machine learning. Now, for some of you may be wondering how your career will look like. Like you're graduating right now, let's say, and you have the next 20, 30 years. I think the basics of marketing will serve you well in whichever era you live. That will always be important. But the technology and tools will obviously change, and you'll have to adapt. Your chances, you grow up in a technology era, and you are comfortable with the new technology, and it changes with adapting to new culture, new technologies, and new tools. So that's an advantage for you. But even for me, I mean, I accepted the fact that things will change, and I should try to be on top of things as much as I can, because that's just the way it is. This is the speed of technology. We have to show the same level of agility with the changing times. But the basics, connecting with people, understanding them, still important. I mean, you are, whatever you do, even if you don't interact with people on a daily basis, any kind of marketing effort will need you to understand people and their expectations, and their habits and things like that. So this is the marketing concept, the idea that I mentioned in the earlier slide, how we can put customers at the center of our strategies. And this was developed in 1960s and onwards. And the idea was that an organization should strive to satisfy the needs of consumers while also trying to achieve the organization's goals. This is what marketing concept is. And over time, this was developed further and turned into more robust business and firm strategies. But at the end of the day, the goal is to understand that all areas of a firm must be customer oriented, and your marketing activities must be integrated, and your objective must reflect that. Um, One example that I have is when I want students to think about the value um, um, as perceived by the customer is one of my friends in the PhD program. She was Korean, and she told me that one time she came back home from school and their dog wasn't there, and turns out that her mom cooked it. You know, I don't think in the Korean culture the eating dog is as prevalent right now. I think maybe it's something from the history, but maybe in other parts of Asia they still eat dog meat, which is fine. Like it's so weird for us. But what I'm trying to say is, uh, other cultures may have certain things that are unusual for your culture, but if you want to do business in that culture, you have to understand their culture. Okay, you cannot just say, oh, this is weird for me, why would anyone do this? you know there are reasons, like for instance in Kazakhstan and the area, they eat horse meat, and it's a delicacy for them, it's important for them. So I've never eaten horse meat, but and it's weird for me. But again, it doesn't mean that I should look at that in a judgmental way. If I want to do business in a different culture, I have to be able to create value as perceived by them. That's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know how they say. It is important to have that kind of perspective. And like I said before, it's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of people, they feel like you start a business, you become successful, you start making money, and then you feel like you understand this business better than everyone else, which may be true at some point. But times change, and if you cannot stay connected to your audience, then at some point your competition will come in, and then they provide better service for your audience, and they'll beat you in the competitive environment. You have to be able to adapt based on changing customer needs. Um, Another example that's called market orientation. This is a strategy that was developed based on the marketing concept. Again, the goal is organization-wide generation of market intelligence, which means data. I remember I told you in 1990s, data was becoming really important for businesses. And then the second part is dissemination of the intelligence across departments. So you collect data. Remember, marketing activities are integrated. All departments are in tune with it, and they understand how you create or make decisions based on the intelligence or data, and then you respond to it as an organization. If you're a luxury brand, your people should know that, because they interact with audience, your customers at different levels. They should carry themselves as a company with a certain identity. So that was the market orientation. Later on, this strategy turned into more CRM systems, more than CRM systems incorporated cloud integration, which is basically, again, the point is any kind of customer touch point is an opportunity for you to create data, and then can you use this data real time to make decisions. That was the idea. Now, some of the concepts that are really important for marketing today: value, long-term relationships. You always want to have the long-term focus in mind, unless you are like, let's say you are a shop in New York City and 90% of your customers will never come back again. Then maybe you can have a short-term focus. But if you expect customers to come back, you got to have a long-term focus. You got to understand the data. I mean, most marketing students, they are a little scared, or they choose marketing because they don't like data, which is I feel like is something that they need to deal with. It's not as scary as it sounds. It can be something that can be improved as well. Sustainability efforts. You have to have a global focus. It's so hard to say I'm just a local business now. I mean, look at the gas prices. Everything, like, our business world right now is global, connected, and it is hard to have just like a local focus. You gotta have an understanding of different cultures, different expectations, and you gotta be in tune by certain global changes, because it will affect your business. It will affect your materials and costs, things like that. Innovation is a unique concept, in marketing and in business. We are, I mean, I'll make a video about just innovation in the future, but it's an important part of marketing efforts. In a lot of cases, you can replace marketing with technology. Like you know, at least the way it's practiced in today's business world. AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, um, you know, other concepts that we will talk about in this uh, in the realm of marketing. Now here, I wanted to show you guys some options. Uh, let's say you want to have a marketing degree. What would be some career paths that you can take after graduation? There are three personas that I created with the help of AI. The first one is a digital marketing specialist. Okay, this person is you know graduated 5 years ago with a marketing degree. Right now, working in digital marketing. May not be making a lot of money, but it's fine, and he's learning. He's doing the dirty stuff. He's basically looking at maybe running a couple of social media pages, maybe running a couple of Google campaigns, maybe making changes to a website, uh, maybe attending some of these meetings related to strategy. Not May not have a lot of input, but you know, to learn the business uh, goals and strategies, he attends these meetings. But again, he's looking at data, try to understand what works, which content works better for their audience, all those type of things. And then the second persona is a brand manager, 10 years into her career. Now she's taking a bigger role in decision making and strategy, not as much as day-to-day dealings about marketing. She probably has a product or a product line under her. She's responsible for creating an image, a positioning strategy for that product or product line. And then in the third picture, you'll have someone who is maybe 20 years in a job, now working in the C-suite, decision with making decisions about the future of the company. This person gotta understand big picture issues, understand manufacturing, understand like cybersecurity. Like for instance, if you are the first guy, maybe you don't have to understand how your company protects data, because you just look at the metrics. You don't really see raw data. But when you are a CMO, you care about these things, and if there's any backlash, you wanna about data privacy issues, let's say, you wanna address them right away. So you'll see how different career trajectories for marketing professionals, and maybe you can imagine yourself doing some of things. One thing that's really important that I think you should understand is that whatever you do in marketing, you gotta be the person who understands people better than others. In a company setting, you'll find accounting people, finance people, IT people, different departments. Let's say you are the CMO, we're talking to the CEO or other leaders in a company. What makes you different? What should, at least ideally, okay, what makes you different is that you should know or you should understand people better than anyone else. You should understand what makes them happy, what they celebrate, how they spend their time, how they access information, who they follow, who they interact with. Uh, you know, like you gotta understand people and their tendencies, their habits, digital or otherwise, and that should be an important part of who you are as a marketer. If you are a person who can care less about people and you're bothered by their company and things like that, I don't think marketing is a great career for you. You don't have to deal with people all the time, but you gotta understand people. Like think about this digital marketing specials, right? You are making changes to the website. Like if you don't understand what people expect, then what's the point? You wanna, because you should have that empathy. You should understand. Oh, do they want to have 10 clicks before they can reach my product, or should I make it easy for them? Should I have an AI tool that will predict what they are looking for? Um, like again, this person may not deal with customers on a daily basis at all, but you still gotta have an understanding of people. That's what I'm trying to say when I say you gotta have that basic skill uh, in marketing, and that should be the difference maker for you. What makes you different is the fact that you understand people better than anyone else in the company. Understanding people doesn't mean you don't have any kind of input or you don't have any kind of agency. This is another famous saying. If I listened to the marketplace, I would have built a faster, cheaper horse. You know, Ideally, people want to go to from point A to point B in a safe manner. They want a faster and cheaper horse because it's better for them. But if you can solve the same problem with a better option, with a car, automobile, why not? So you gotta understand people. That doesn't mean you don't have any kind of agency or you don't strategize. Or again, if you ask people about an iPhone without creating one, they won't really envision how that's gonna help them. But you create the iPhone and tell them this is how it's gonna help you, then they'll buy it. So the point here is that you got to have that kind of marketing acumen, but and customer focus. But it doesn't mean you got to have a marketing myopia, or even like I said, you gotta strategize around customer needs, expectations, and you gotta solve their problem. Okay, problem solving is one of the most important thing. You cannot just say I know it all. That's also like some level of inertia that you have. You don't want to do that. But at the same time, uh, you gotta have a balance. Another important concept in marketing is the marketing metrics. Now, I want to highlight this especially because I see a lot of marketing students, they hate numbers, and then they see numbers, they are like, oh, the reason I come to marketing is because I don't want, like, this is something that it can be improved. You can get a little bit more comfortable seeing numbers uh, over time. Metrics is a little different. You're not going to look at raw data again, but you got to look at data because a lot of data, and it will help you make decisions. You cannot ignore data as marketing. You create a social media content, you got to know who watches it. You got to know if you have any kind of impressions. You got to know who clicks, who likes. You got to know when they stop watching the video or they continue to watch the video. Like you got to look at those numbers, and you got to be comfortable looking at those numbers. Because at the end of the day, if it can't be measured, it can be managed. Like, how are you going to know whether you are hitting your goals if you don't have any set specific numbers that you follow? And the other thing is, the other issue here is, if you don't have any data to support your decisions, then your marketing efforts, they look like just a cost center for the firm. And the times go hard, they're going to cut the costs right away. Marketing expenses are usually the first ones to cut in difficult times, during crisis, during recessions. Why? Because people don't see how it's going to add value. The data will help you connect your marketing spending to the revenue. That will help you look at it as an investment. Because at the end of the day, if it's an investment, there's a return on that investment. And you can show how the marketing spending makes a difference. That's an important distinction. You gotta be able to connect. I had a guest speaker once. This person was a director for an online retailer, a marketing director, and her responsibility was to create awareness about the brand. She was not even worried about the sales. Okay, she was just top of the funnel. Okay, you create awareness, then give that information to your sales team, and hopefully they close. But she was so good at connecting her budget to the return, the sales, that would give her an edge in during the resource allocation. She told me she told us, like, this was when she was talking to the classroom, she was responsible for maintaining relationships with 500 influencers. Think about it. She had a budget to maintain the relationship. So the first year of the pandemic, they had this meeting, and the company was scrambling around to cut costs. And when they looked at her, she was like, "Look, if you want to cut my cost 10%, here's how much revenue you're gonna lose." Simple as that. You want to do it? Go ahead. But this is the revenue. And after that meeting, she got increase in her budget. Think about it. The pandemic hits, everyone is going through hard times, and everyone losing their budget and everything. Your department increases its budget because you have a direct line to the revenue, and you can show how your budget, your spending, impacts revenue. Okay, so that will just tell you how important it is to work with numbers, even when you are, you know, in marketing. That's an important part. And CEOs, stakeholders, decision makers, they expect accountability. This is how you show accountability. You spent this much money, and this is how you make a difference. We'll probably have a dashboard like this. Again, that's what I was trying to say. Like, you don't really have to look at the raw data. You don't need to be a statistician. You don't have to run statistical models. If you are into that kind of marketing analytics, you can do it, but you don't have to. But you should be able to look at the dashboard. You should be able to look at the data. You should be able to connect the dots when you look at the numbers. Finally, I want to talk about the marketing environment. Okay, so when you're in marketing, I mentioned the marketing mix, or 4 P's of marketing. This is our area of interest. Okay, these are the controllable internal forces. When you are working for a marketing department, these are things that you can affect. And there are uncontrollable external forces. These are things that you cannot control, but you should still understand them so you can adapt. There are social changes, social cultural changes. People don't watch TV anymore. They watch or they don't, they rarely watch live TV and things like that. Like, the tendencies, they change, and how are you going to adapt? Now you see 80% of marketing spending that goes to digital. You go back 15, 20 years, it was maybe 10%. Now it's 80%. So you understand where people are. It's important. Economic changes, the global macro level changes. You have to understand these things, because they'll undoubtedly affect your business. A war on the other side of the world can impact your cost, your expenses, and it's just something that's that needs to be considered. Technological changes, probably the most uh, pre- prominent one right now. All we hear about is the artificial intelligence and machine learning and how it impacts our day-to-day practices. The competitive forces, again, dynamic. It's good for the economy, good for the society. When there's competition, everyone improves, and there's regulatory changes, which significantly affects how you do business. Right now we have a Republican government, and then you'll see a lot of businesses using national sentiment in their business practices. Maybe 4 years ago you didn't see similar strategies, but at the end of the day, you want to understand the climate, social climate, cultural climate, regulatory climate, and then adapt your strategies based on that. 4Ps, on the other hand, these are things that you can change. The product is what you offer to the market. Price is what you ask in return. Place is where this exchange takes place, because the location matters. Location affects how you add value, so it's an important part. And the promotion is how you get the word out there so the right people show up to the point of exchange. If you don't do a good job at the promotion, if the the wrong people show up to the point of exchange, they're not going to buy it. All your efforts will go in vain. There's also promotional mix elements under the promotional umbrella. These are advertising, PR, personal selling, sales promotion, and direct marketing. Advertising is like you have a third party who's paid to deliver your message. Public relations, the difference is you have a third party, but they're not paid to deliver your message. Public relations is not free. It's still very expensive, but whoever is delivering the message is not paid to do so. Personal selling is okay, advertising is mass communication. I want to have the interpersonal connection with my customers for whatever reason. Then you have a sales force. You hire a sales force and you have your salespeople. Or you can use sales promotion, which is the strategies like coupons, rebates, things like that, where you will help you move the product today, not tomorrow. So that has that sense of urgency. Or you can have direct marketing efforts, which is your connection with your clients uh, that you have, um, maybe through mail or digital means, where you try to make things happen. Okay, so it's important to understand the general environment of a marketing, effort, and understand where we are. Okay, so in this video, I wanted to make an introduction to marketing, what marketing is not, some of the misconceptions. I wanted to talk about them. I wanted to talk about, give you guys a historical perspective. I wanted to talk about some of the basic skills and what makes a good marketer different than others. And I wanted to talk about the careers a little bit, and in general, I wanted to talk about a marketer's area of interest. So, what are some of the things that uh, we want to talk about, we want to practice about? And in other videos, uh, I'll open some of the concepts that are mentioned here, and I dig a little deeper into some of the other concepts. Thank you for listening.